So my name is Brian Masaga. I'm from Poland. I go with the name Moo Latte. I've been making music for most of my life. I'm almost 30 years old right now. And I started playing violin when I was 7. So I basically went through the process of classical education for around 9 years. And when I was, I don't know, like 16 years old, I dropped out from the music school. I just wanted to study to become like engineer or something, get a real job. uh, Mostly because like my parents were pushing me to, but also I didn't really feel like classical music is my thing. So then in the meantime, in the high school, maybe it's not an introduction. It's more,
No, that's okay. That's okay. I was
yeah,
gonna ask this stuff anyways.
yeah. But yeah, I'm Brian Masaga, go with the name Moo Latte, and I'm a music producer and instrumentalist. And yeah, that's basically the basic introduction.
When did you say you dropped out of music school?
When I was like 16 years old, when I
Wow.
went to a normal high school, and then I actually discovered what it is, how it is to actually make music for fun, and how it is to just be creative with music, not only like recreate what's already been written like 300 years ago.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that because I had a guest on recently, is my friend John,
Hmm.
and that's something that he had mentioned too, where uh, he had been for a portion of his schooling, he was studying music, he was playing in band and all this sort of thing, and then he had this sort of snap moment of realization that even though it helped him a lot,
Hmm.
it's not like there. It's a world in itself. And then him coming out of that was a huge. He didn't realize really how it would be, but he loved it.
Hmm.
So that's really interesting that you were in school for music, and that it was only when you went out of that you started to realize your true, where your true love lies, or where the creativity for yourself lies.
Yeah, I think it was just pure love for music, and of course it was like teenager years when I was playing in the cover band, playing Red Hot Chili Peppers, and first time I read like electric guitar before I was playing classical violin and classical guitar, and I had nothing to do with actually playing. There's something that's called like rhythmic music. There's like this separation between classical music and rhythmic music that
Hmm.
functions in Denmark. So classical music, of course, is classical music, and rhythmic is everything that is like jazz, blues, rock, and pop, and yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I think
Um,
it's like very like oversimplifying things, but you
sure.
immediately know what's going on, right?
Hmm. Very interesting. Yeah. Um, and take me through. So you do that transition where you're in a normal high school now. You start to find your love for music. Further love for music. How does that? I know that's a huge jump, but how does that translate to where you are now? Like, when did you start actually creating music and putting it out to the world?
So I started to produce, even though I had no idea it's called producing. I just, recording. I bought my first sound card. Like it was creative sound blaster or something, like ancient stuff. And I recorded my first like acoustic, like classical guitar on this, those microphone, the first Skype microphones, those little sticks.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
used that to record and started layering in Audacity,
Wow.
um, and then just actually the very first song I produced. I stole from my best friend. I stole the chords that he just made up, and I put a drum loop that I found in the internet and put it underneath, and then just send it as a Valentine Day's gift to my girlfriend back then.
Wow.
And that was the very first song I produced, and I had no idea that it's called producing or making beats. So actually, it was maybe like 7 years later that I actually find out that actually something like making beats, and that a person like Jay Dilla existed. It
Right.
was one of my best friends and mentors, in the music conservatory. Okay, sorry, I'm just windy
No,
jumping.
no, it's okay. No, no, this is all
It's
good.
not very chronological, but uh, yeah, that was my beginning of producing. Then I switched to Reaper,
Mm-hmm.
and started to just build like more and more complex arrangement, and not using only my guitar, but also like experimenting with some keyboards and piano VSTs and stuff like that. And then I was hired in a local like city theater to
Mm-hmm.
play in this play. It was in the form of a rock concert. So there was actually actor playing his role,
Wow.
and leading the whole show. But there was a band that I was playing in, and it like kind of a musical thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I met a composer that was scoring like some of the biggest movies in Poland, and I he actually kind of asked me to collaborate on one of the TV series. So yeah, of course I said yes, and
Yeah.
I started just get some more and more serious, I know, like assignments or
Mm-hmm.
opportunities, from different people. Uh, and when I was 19 years old, I moved to Denmark to study at the music conservatory,
Mm-hmm.
to study jazz guitar. Because in the meantime, like stealing songs from my best friends, and playing in the theater. I was also playing in the jazz band with some of my friends from my town,
I see.
and going to some summer camps, to play with some other young people, that wanted to learn jazz. And then I applied for this school in Denmark, and got in, and that's how it started for me, like to uh, pick up like music education again. It was a little bit like it was
Mm-hmm.
much more. It was much different because it was not classical music. I was not uh,
Right.
forced to do it. I actually wanted to get in, and it was pretty hard to get in. Not like I think there were only like 9 people on my year.
Wow.
So I was very grateful that I had an opportunity to study there. So yeah, that's how it started, and then I just shifted my focus more to playing jazz, and playing with different bands, and playing like jazz guitar, shredding my jazz standards and stuff like that. But then I was also like after hours I was producing, and as I mentioned before, like my friend showed me Jay Dilla and DJ Premier and those like legends.
Mm-hmm.
I started to get more into actually hip hop and more consciously producing that. Okay, I'm making beats. Actually, there could be someone rapping on it, and
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's all so so interesting. No, I love all that.
yeah.
Uh yeah, I could go so many directions with this, but well, the one question I have, so you were playing in a band as part of a theater, you said, right?
Yes.
So how long were you doing that for? And did it seem like you said that a composer approached you?
Mhm.
Was that like through? Did he meet you there at the theater, or was it through something else?
Yeah, he was hired by the theater to compose the music for that show, but the music was like very open because it was a rock concert. So actually,
Right.
we've been uh, making up the riffs, and so actually like co-composing.
Awesome.
And then he just noticed that I have initiative. I take initiative and can do other stuff than also playing guitar. So then he just asked me to collaborate on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we played it for around like 1.5 years or something.
Wow. Okay. And out of curiosity, when you like, was it the same? It couldn't be the same show for that long, or you're saying that it was the same show for that long?
It was the same show. Like we,
Wow.
we played maybe like 5 or 6 times a month. So it was like there was the whole scenery set up in one part of the theater. There
I
was
see.
so we had all of our instruments there. So sometimes I would just go right after school, just go there and tune my guitar, and then people are coming, and then I play. So it was also my
Wow.
very first experience to be like a professional musician. Okay, I cannot fuck it up. I have
Yeah.
to. I'm getting paid, and so that was actually like a pivot point for me to consider myself. Okay, I can actually make it for a living.
Yeah. Um, and when you did that transition, because I know a lot of people when they get put into it's a conversation that I've had with many people where um, when they get put into scenarios where they're they have deadlines, they have to make sure they're on time, they have to actually it's not just oh I feel like making music so I'm gonna go make some music. It's more of you have something to deliver. Did that change anything for you? Did it, maybe make it more difficult, or was it just a natural progression and it was all good? Like there was no, real hiccups there.
I wouldn't say there were any hiccups. I think I'm like one of my good, you know, characteristics is I have like a pretty decent work ethics.
Hmm.
So when like I'm asked to do something, or if I'm supposed to do something, I usually just put it on my to-do list and just have it done, before the
Hmm.
deadline. But also because I just decide to work on things that I really like doing. And of course, when there's like a repetition, if it starts to get boring, then it gets a little bit challenging. And through my, you know, um, the whole journey with music, I had a couple of projects that I got really tired of, and I just as soon as I noticed that okay, something is wrong, I'm not feeling in a good place working on that, and maybe I should just try something different, something that would be more um, inspiring and pushing me to learn new things. Because
Hmm.
usually when I start to get boring, it means that it's not challenging enough.
Hmm.
And I think that's the essence of like picking the right things to do. It has to be fun, but also it has to be challenging, and you have to have some kind of progress bar, like RPG games, that you can measure your progress. uh,
Hmm.
I think that's really helps staying on the lane and not getting bored.
That is such a good point. That's something that I'm definitely someone who I need to, or I really appreciate seeing like progress, having certain goals or, checklist type things, anything that I can use to track my progress. It helps me a ton and keeps me motivated for whatever I'm doing. But with music, I don't do it enough. I do it like a little bit, but I should be doing it more. Um, are there specific things you might be doing in order to track your progress, or is it more of a mental thing that okay, I'm challenging myself. This feels right now. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, how does that go for you?
I think I could divide it on like different like scales, because I can measure my progress in a big scale, like within like 5 years or something. And today, like today morning, I was talking with my wife that just got into the our house. Uh, we talked about rejection,
Hmm.
uh, and that it's hard to, like us musicians, we are so used to being rejected, and usually it's rejection by having like no response at all, and
Exactly.
and I mean, I'm not really sure if it's easier to be rejected that way or to be rejected more directly. But I think that the progress over the like longer period of time for me was that I started to be less and less like ignored and rejected. Suddenly
Hmm.
people started to, okay, I can just write that person on Instagram, and that person is actually responding to me. It's and that couldn't be pointing to like it's just pointing that I made some progress, like because before I was not even sure if it's a matter of the quality of my music or the way I approach people or both, or I had no idea if it's even possible, because I didn't know anyone that just been through the same things.
Yeah.
But in the smaller scale, I think it's just for example, I every time when I start a new project, a new beat, new sample, like new composition, I name them with number. And friends from my band always been laughing at me that it's like, it's not inspiring, just give it a real title, and but then I just put it like with numbers, and after like a couple of years, when they've been losing projects
Yeah.
and sessions, I'll just, okay, what's the number of that, and I just type it, and it's just there. It was also like very easy to organize my shit.
Right.
Mm, but then I see the progress, and it's, for example, today I started like 1,302.
Wow.
And then I can just go back in the folder and check my 600s and 500s, and okay, the mix was really shitty. I had no like sense of what the good sound selection is, and then in 700s and 800s were like, I started to really get the thing about, the feeling and the atmosphere and the character of the sound, and so that's how I also measure the progress.
That's so interesting. Uh, I'm curious. Do you ever go back on older projects and then you hear something and you go, you know what? That's kind of cool. Like you're almost inspired from the previous thing that you were doing.
Totally. I think it was maybe because I started producing when I was already like had some, like music theory and knowledge and ear for music. I was always like listening to a lot of music, so I actually can remember having like a piece of music that I started that was not initially a good idea. It was always that I just fucked it up along the way, with lack of skill of just pulling it off.
Right.
Uh, like whether it was a mixing or just wanting to put too many elements like arrangement or like sound selection, sound design, and then
Mm.
where the things went like completely wrong. So I could probably take like any project from the past and just turn it into something good. But I guess it would just take much more time than
Yeah.
just making something from scratch. Just listening, just maybe
Right.
inspire myself, but not really like remake old stuff.
For sure. Yeah.
And what about you?
Well, that's why I asked because I do there's like I do the same thing sometimes when I go back to my old projects and I try to have them. I don't have the number organization system there, but I do have my dates and my years and stuff, and I try to keep it fairly organized. But there have been a few times where I'll go back and I'll listen to like an old instrumental that I did, and I'll go, oh my gosh, like you know what? Like of course there's a lot of issues with it. There's I've come a long way, but then there will be little things that I did in there that I maybe stopped doing along the way, or I was doing
Mhm.
during that small period of time that was actually really working for me or sounded very interesting. So I'll go back and just see what I did in the mix and stuff. And because back then, like you said too, it's not like I knew fully what I was doing, but the sound I got maybe for a kick or like an 808 I haven't
Mhm.
gotten that in a while. So let me see what I did. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm curious. You seem, I mean, you've had a lot of experience. You were in school when you were young for music. You went out of it. You came back in through your own will, and through your own intuition. Why, or rather, when you went the second time around, was it
Mhm.
a lot different, would you say, or was it kind of similar in the sense that, okay, I know what going to school for music looks like. This is basically what I expected. I know obviously you had a more of a reason to go back. when you were
Hmm.
playing the guitar now, but did you kind of like, was it what you expected when you went back the second time?
Yeah, but I expected like completely different thing from the school that I escaped from. You know, I knew that it's like much more like loose and much more like uh, focus on my individual voice, and that is mostly gonna be about like finding myself and just creating my own shit, rather than just
Mm,
I mean, it was also like about like learning jazz standards, and of course learning about the tradition of music and just getting better at the craft, you know, because it was also very important. But as soon as I actually noticed that it was about that, I kind of started to mentally drop out from the school.
mm,
I still like carried on, but I was mostly focused on just composing my own stuff, and you know, and not really paying too much attention to those like assignments, and something that I knew that maybe it's not going to be that essential for my development at the time. And I
right.
think it was a good decision. It's maybe I was not like too radical to actually drop out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I did in fact change the school because I was in a music conservatory like for jazz guitar, and finished my bachelor and started like a jazz composition at the same school in Odense. It's like third biggest city in Denmark.
I
And
see.
then in the meantime, I moved to Copenhagen, uh, and then I started a new my master's degree in music production. It was like uh, so. Then I shifted my focus. Okay, I tried to adapt my education to my needs,
Mm,
and still like carrying on with learning and being a part of a school. But it actually also happened in the other school. I started to feel like a little bit like trapped, that okay, I want to do some other things, you know, and they asked me to do some, you know, like papers, and just
mm,
uh, that school was so much about just describing what I want to achieve, you know, and what's the
mm.
purpose of how am I gonna change the world with this music, you know, which are all valid questions, but maybe not necessary for like 25, 26 years old like person that just wants to like grab things from different genres, you know, and just explore, you know, and they expected everyone to be groundbreaking, you know, uh,
Yeah.
artist, you know, and that was a little bit um, stressful and putting like too much pressure. So I also like the last semester, I also mentally dropped out,
Mm-hmm.
but managed to actually just finish the school, and I was the most uh, happy and free person when I had nothing to do except just waking up in the morning and just making my to-do list and just working on my craft.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting because one thing I really appreciate in that is that the fact that you, like you said, you almost adjusted your education to meet your needs, which a lot of people, I mean, they, even if they have the opportunity, they have trouble making a change that big. It might be really scary for them. Was that something where you were nervous about switching? Were you kind of, or was it a very just, you know what, this is what I want, so I'm doing it. There's no issue.
Uh, Basically, like also the last school I went for this master's degree, it was also like pretty hard to get in. So I just tried
Mm,
my best to just went for the audition and showed my music, and also just wrote my like the description of my work, and I basically knew what they expect me to write. You
right,
know, I
right,
tried to
yeah.
make myself like more, you know, explorative than I actually was, you know, and I think that just worked, and I got in, and a lot of people didn't get in, so I thought, okay, that's I should be grateful again,
Right.
just and take my chance. Also, that I lived in the same city and I didn't have to just take the train back and forth every day and wasting like 3 hours in the train
Wow,
every day.
yeah.
Everything just fell into place.
I see. That
So
makes sense.
it was not very difficult like for me.
That makes sense. Yeah, and one other thing that's quite interesting, I know a lot of people, they when they get into schooling or any sort of thing that they're doing that isn't directly fully directly impacting their own production,
Hmm.
they sometimes lose focus on their own production, or they don't have as much time to focus on their own production and put out stuff that they want to be doing.
Hmm.
How did you yourself draw that balance? Like, were there times where you really wish you could have, at the time, wish you were spending more time on your own music at your own time, and you couldn't? Or were you always, did you always have that on the side, always going?
I always had like my music thing going, like when like no matter what I was professionally like focusing on, and then at some point just mm, releasing my own music, on Spotify became my profession because just the streaming started to just grow, and I thought, okay, that's maybe a way to make a living, and
Hmm.
that's where I actually started to get a little bit bored because I knew that what works the most and generates the most of streams, it's those like study type beats, like basically background music that I got very quickly bored of making.
Right.
So in the recent like 2 years, I actually stopped putting music out like very like frequently. But if you asked about like the school, like balancing the like school assignments and original music, the good thing about that school, that master's program, was that my assignments were actually my own music.
Right.
So I would bring like the new composition every week, and was about to like describe the meaning behind it, and how I just yeah what I
Hmm.
did to make it like different than any other work before, and it was a little bit too stressful at some point.
Yeah.
At some
Yeah.
point
I bet.
because I knew what I'm actually want to achieve, but maybe it was not too flashy for my teacher, back then, that expected me to make some great things.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. So one of the things you just mentioned too was the fact that you know you were you would you started to put out your own music. You were
Mhm.
making music that you could consider sort of background music or study music, and you got bored of that fairly quickly. A lot of people, and that this is kind of where a lot of people, when they get something that works for them like that, it's hard to, even though they might not be feeling it as much, it's hard to give that up because they're seeing something come out of it.
Mhm.
um but you do seem like someone who just follows your heart and mind, and you know yourself really well, so you know what works. Was that transition kind of hard for you to kind of step away from that type of music and again focus on things that you were more passionate about?
Mm, I never gave up like 100%.
Mm.
I just I always been making like just a little bit of those, and even just making it more consciously Spotify friendly, but I've been putting
Mm.
it out like under a different name that I'm never gonna tell to anyone because
Yeah.
it's kind of embarrassing, but it actually works.
Yeah.
But I was also like very lucky to join a band that's actually one of my like most important chapters in my music career.
Mm.
That I joined that band that I was like looking up to. That's a Polish band
I
called
see.
Vitamina, and right now there are actually two bands. One is called Vitamina, and the other one is called Vito Bambino, and it's basically the same people, but it's just uh, different music.
Right.
Uh, and I joined the band and started touring with them, and basically
Wow.
been on tour for the last 5 years and played like 100 shows a year.
Wow. That's
So
insane.
so that was also paying my bills. So I knew that, okay, Ryan, like I have to be on tour. So and that pays my bills. So maybe now is a good time to give up the study music and uh, just jump on the train. Playing in the band that it's is pretty popular in Poland. Just made it more possible for me to just reach out to like bigger and more like known people in the Polish on the Polish scene, and just collaborating with them. So those kind of a shortcut for me to get into the industry kind of producing, and more like being a producer and songwriter, not only a beat maker. So yeah, I was also lucky to have that opportunity and choose in between those, and trying to use every like hour in the tour bus to actually make a quick study beat in one
Yeah.
hour, and then work on my original things for another hour, and then in the hotel for another hour just make a demo for that artist that I wanted to work with. So I'm a
Right.
workaholic. Maybe you noticed.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that. Well, so and this is kind of there's a couple things in there. One, well, I mean, I have so many questions now, but let me see where to start here. The first one you said is it's a band that you used to look up to, that you said, right?
Yes.
And okay, so that's incredible. I mean, I know that's almost like a dream-like thing for a lot of people, where if they look up to someone and then all of a sudden they're working with them, you're touring with these guys. This band, that's really, really crazy. How did that come about? Like, how did that even happen?
It was basically like magic, and like a dream, because
Wow.
it was just the very last semester of this that master's degree. I had an opportunity to choose my own teacher, and I had the budget to pay the teacher, and it could be any person in the world.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I thought, okay, there's this really nice band, really cool band. Maybe it's a nice opportunity to just reach out to them and take some classes. But I would just pay them money, and we would just make some music. And I was just about to write that guy, the lead singer and the leader of the band. I was just about to write him like a message that, yeah, here, like I have some money, just let's meet up.
Hmm.
But before I actually send it to him, I got the message from him that he was like
What?
on SoundCloud that, yeah, man, like you have some really nice beats. Just let's just hook up.
What?
Yeah.
That's insane. What?
So yeah, I'm probably the luckiest person. Uh, but it just happened, and then I said, okay, like let's just meet up. I have this money. He said, just I don't want your money. So I also like just got some change, like for renovating a new apartment.
Yeah,
and, uh,
exactly.
and then we just actually met on one of the festivals, uh, and just because I lived in Denmark, and I still live in Denmark, and the band is playing in Poland, it just creates like logistics problem.
Right.
And so we at the beginning we didn't take it like too seriously. We thought, okay, maybe I'm just gonna just sit in the band like once in a while when I'm
Right.
in Poland. But it started to be like more and more serious. So
Wow.
I stayed, and actually we are releasing our uh the second album of the second project, and it's in total is probably like fourth album of me producing, and I'm actually like right now producing for the band and doing like mixing and mastering, and
Wow. That's amazing. Um,
it's actually a very nice band, so I can recommend it to everyone, even though it's
yeah.
in Poland. But the music is very like like it explores many different genres.
Tell me the name of the band again. I didn't fully capture.
One is called Bitamina,
Bitamina.
and the other one is called Vito Bambino. That's the one that we
Vito
mostly focus
Bambino.
on right
Okay,
now.
very cool. Okay, yeah. So no, I'll definitely check them out. I love listening to new music, always getting introduced to new music. Um, and wow, I mean, again, I have so many like this is so interesting to me. Um, One of the questions I have is when you started to perform with this band, because of your prior experience performing in that theater, was that kind of a like did that help you in any way, or was this a totally different beast? Like, was it a new thing for you, in that sense?
Mm, yeah, I think I was like, since I was 7 years old, I had my first like public
Mm,
performances, so I got used to the stress that comes with it,
yeah.
uh, so it just became a little bit like very natural that I play in front of people. And it's very funny that it's less stressful for me to play in front of like thousands of thousands of people. uh, it's way easier for me to do that than to play for my family or to
Hmm.
play a song for my wife or something,
Wow.
and, because I know that, okay, they actually came to like paid for tickets to listen to us playing. Also, I'm not the main focus like in a band. I play the guitar in the band, and they mostly like came to listen to the lead singer or both singers, and it's actually pretty comfortable for me. It's
Very cool.
I got used to it pretty quickly.
Hmm. When through, I mean, you're talking about mixing and mastering for for this band, producing. Is there? It kind of gets me thinking. Is there a skill throughout your entire music career, or music journey, that you had more trouble picking up? Like, was there something that you started to learn? You're like, man, this is taking like this isn't as coming as naturally to me as other skills.
I think I never got to learn piano on the level that would be like satisfying for me. Mostly because like playing the guitar, I'm like I can move freely on my like on the fretboard and just improvise, and on the piano it's just like completely different layout of and even though I started my first piano lessons when I was like 10 years old, I just I really
Wow.
can't play, and but beside that, I think it's I was lucky enough to start every of like the skill branch, like for example mixing. I started mixing before I actually knew it was mixing. I just knew,
Hmm.
okay, just have to set the balance. That's too loud. That's maybe I didn't know that it's mixing. I didn't know that there's something like mastering. I And actually until now I also treat it the same way. I do masters in the same session
Hmm.
as I do mixing, because I think I just do everything to make it sound good, and I know that there's no one after me that is gonna take care of it. I'm sending the final things, and I was lucky to start doing it before there was like a lot of pressure on me. you
Hmm.
know when I was doing it, like no one around me was doing the same thing or doing it professionally or even not professionally. So I was not judged by anyone. I was my worst judge,
Yeah.
and I was getting better and better. And right now, when I can actually mix and master. Maybe it's not the best. Maybe those are not the best mixes or the cleanest mixes or masters, but they're just good enough to uh, yeah, just to translate to other sound systems and serve the music.
Hmm.
Also, I think about like mixing and mastering. The funny thing is that the whole lo-fi mindset is very helpful. When you listen to a lot of records, those are not perfect. Like
Hmm.
the coolest records are not perfect at all. In fact, they always have some kind of dirt and imperfections. And once I started to just notice that, it was all so much pressure just went away.
That's so true. That's so very true. Yeah. Um, yeah, I just started to. mix and master more so recently, learning what that even means nowadays and that sort of thing and what that entails. The mixing thing, I've started to learn vocal mixing, particularly actual songs, in the past 3 years. I'm
Hmm.
still learning a lot, but it is really interesting because that's a skill that I really thought like I'd almost shied away from, because every time I would try, it would be a lot, and then I would think, oh no, this is too much for me right now, whatever. But as I actually started to work with more artists in the studio, and started to figure it out, I realized, wow, this is actually far more doable than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Now, of course, like the sea is endless with things you could learn in that regard for sure.
Hmm.
And I actually just finished my first like official, this is a song I've been sitting on for ages, and I finished the final master.
Hmm.
And I got help. I FaceTimed a few people that I know that are my friends of mine that are really well versed in that. So and that is one thing that one of them mentioned, is that he mixes and masters as he kind of goes along the process. It's all like, a part of the same process for him. So that's really interesting to hear you say that. I want to switch gears a little bit, because there's one thing that I was curious about that you'd mentioned, where that I didn't dive into fully. This composer that reached out to you when you were at the theater, and then you were so you ended up composing with him for this TV show?
Yeah, and actually, yeah, we made one TV show. We started with that, and then when I moved to Denmark, I was working with him remotely, and we actually made like, yeah, a couple of TV series and couple of movies, and just in a period of like 2 or 3 years or
Wow.
something. So it was like kind of yeah, steady thing, and I really learned a lot. It was one of my first experiences to actually record in the studio, with and just make takes and take directions from like
Hmm.
a producer that was giving us advice to, like, in our monitors. Okay, now just build it up, build it up, build it up, and then just 1, 2, 3, and just we are ending here, because he was watching the scene and just giving us the cues. So that was a
Wow.
really nice experience.
That's so interesting. Yeah. That's what I was curious about, is I'm sure you learned a lot with that process. Um
Yeah.
so you do a lot of really interesting Instagram content, sort of just content that you're putting out online. When did that start? Was that like a intentional thing where you're like, okay, I'm going to start to really build my personal brand on social media? Um, or was that more of just like kind of the natural, right? Like you're just sharing the stuff that you're doing, you're sharing your life, you're sharing your music. Um, yeah, where did that start, and what was the thought process behind that?
So first of all, when I started to just be on Instagram, that was okay. Back in the days on Facebook, every time when I would um, make a make a song, I would just share it with my friends, and just hope for as many likes as possible. Like before, like any money was involved, those are the only currency that
Yeah.
really mattered. Uh, and then I just noticed, okay, maybe there's really no sense for me to just put pictures of myself or pictures of anything, and then when I started, you know I changed my alias to Moo Latte, and I started the Instagram, and I said, okay, now I just only want to make it about the music, because
Mm.
I'm sometimes surprised that I just go for, like, check Instagram of someone, and then I cannot see his or her face, and there's no music. There are only pictures of someone, like, posing in the studio, like, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, nice, nice, nice LED lights, but I I just went to that page because I want to check out, like, once music. So I thought, okay, maybe it's a nice business card, so that someone
Mm.
actually, yeah, just check my profile and immediately gets a feeling of, what kind of music I create and what kind of instruments I play, and so I started to treat it like more and more like this. And when people started like noticing the maybe not the quality, but being intentional about making this content, I started to like get more and more into it, and I bought the a better camera and started to really grind with making that content. But I burned out after like 2 years. And actually, maybe you noticed that I have a lot of content, but a lot of that is not very like recent,
Mm-hmm.
because I started feeling like a little bit stressed every time when it was mostly because I had to make a lot of content ahead before going on tour. For example, I would go like on tour for 5 months
Right.
or something. Okay, so today I have to make like 8 beat videos. Okay, so first I have to make beats, and not all of the beats are good for making content, and
Mm-hmm.
for playing with the SP44,
Right.
so I'd have to make beats that are good for that, and those kinds of beats are not necessarily good for actual listening to, or putting out on Spotify. So I would have to make a special kind of musical content. Then I would have to. We have like a very small apartment, so I always wanted to have a nice angle and to look a little bit different, Uh, and by the way, have you seen this? Count Cole, the Instagram guy.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Count, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Count Koala, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you seen his last video with the manager?
I don't think
Just,
so. I'll have to check it out.
uh, I think it just illustrates like the whole struggle that I've been through subconsciously. That I have to, with each video, I have to surprise myself and surprise like my audience and introduce something new and make it more flashy, and it was even before TikTok,
Mm,
and all about being flashy.
yeah.
So right now, when I think about like me making content for TikTok, I get terrified, and
Yeah.
I cannot do anything. So I consciously decided not to do it anymore. And that content that I made before, I think is good enough, and it's still um, like shows like what my style is. Uh, and but I just don't have to do it anymore. And I would rather spend that time on making actual music that than making content, especially that I don't have that much time for that anymore.
That makes sense. That makes so much sense. And like you said, it's already done so much for you and served you so well. It's still there and it still speaks to what music you're making. So, there's
Yeah.
no, I see what you're saying. It makes sense. Um, I'm going to switch gears a little again. I do think all of that, I find the content creation side of things super interesting because some producers are very, not against, but they're very averse to it. They don't like to jump into that too much.
Let's
So, actually speaking to someone that's very, or did it for so long and is super or was super invested into it is really interesting and refreshing. Um, I'm curious to see like because again you have so much experience in all this wide, it's not a lot of producers nowadays will sit at home and be doing everything from behind the screen, whereas you've had these various venues that you've been at. Now you've been touring with this band for a long time, for some time. With all of that in mind, if you were to give advice to a person that wanted to get into music,
Mhm.
starting out, let's say they want to produce, they want to be a music producer of some sort, what kind of advice do you think you could give that person? I know it's dependent on the situation and
Mhm.
that sort of thing, but what kind of advice do you think you would give to someone starting out?
I think first of all is to really identify what's the if there's a real urge to actually making music and why they want to become a music producer. If it's like to earn like 10K a month, like selling beats on BeatStars, if that's the main goal, that and the only goal, or maybe like 80% of a goal, then then it's gonna be hard, you know. But if that person just loves music and loves making music and would be able to just make music only for himself or herself, I think that's enough. And if someone wants to become a musician and music producer and really wants that, the one is gonna become one. You know, it's and if someone is looking advice, you know, how to become someone, then it means okay, that if you need advice, like why didn't you find it yourself? You know, it's everywhere. You know, like the information is everywhere. You have so many tutorials. You know, and yeah, if someone really wants it, like it's never been easier to find right tools, you know, for doing that. And there's actually no shortcut. For I mean, there are a lot of shortcuts, like including AI, you know, and you can become a music producer just clicking one button and, you know, call yourself like music producer or beat maker. But I think it's yeah, just finding the joy of the process. I think that's the most important.
Very interesting. Yes. I this is kind of a weird question, but it just got me thinking with that Valentine's Day beat you made.
Yeah.
What I assume you're still like, it would just be crazy to me if that is the person you're married to now.
No,
It's not okay, because I was hoping it would have been hilarious. It would have been amazing, but okay.
Yeah, that would actually I cannot. It would probably be much easier to find that beat because I don't know where it is, you know. And I think I printed it on CD, you know, just
Oh
to give it like
yeah.
yeah. And I did actually a couple of those compositions like just for my wife back in the days. Of course, they were not stolen anymore. They were like 100% original because it was a little bit later. Uh, yeah, but yeah, it's not this. It's not the same person.
Yeah. So this creativity that you have, that you know make your music through, I always I go back and forth with people sometimes about creativity and what it even means and how to harness it, and what, you know, if you hit a creative block, what to do. Everyone has their own ways of dealing with it. Do you ever hit somewhere where you would consider it a creative block? You know, where you're in sort of that rut maybe, or does that not really happen to you?
Yeah, it happened to me like many times, and I think it just happens to everyone once in a while. And it's just I just started noticing that as soon as I have to tackle it with, I think the easiest way to tackle the beat block or like creative block is just learning a new thing, you know. And sometimes it can be as easy as just buying a new plugin, but that's the shortcut, and it not always not work like every time. But just changing something a bit and maybe introduce a kind of a limitation, like for me and my like lifestyle in the last five years, when I was like touring, like and maybe spent like half of the days, you know, like outside of my bedroom studio. You know, I always had to like work with whatever I had with me, you know. And sometimes I would be in a hotel room just with a computer, and sometimes I would be in my best friend's place and just with like acoustic guitar and computer microphone, and you know. Um, and when I had so many limitations in the past, sometimes when I actually have all the instruments, you know, all the instruments available, you know, and all the tools, sometimes that's the easiest way to get a beat block, because I have too
Yes.
many possibilities and I can go like everywhere. But I think it's what really helped me with starting a creative idea is just to listen to music and just go on Spotify and just listen to random stuff, but not like uh, okay, copy that thing, but just like almost like rolling a dice. You I go to like through my playlist, play a song for 5 seconds, and then just, okay, what just popped up? Okay, there's a bass guitar and piano. Like, okay, then I'm got to another one, and there's, okay, there's this like pretty like fast drum beat, and then I already have three elements that I can put in the composition and see what's gonna happen, and then take it from there, and then just react. And I think it always been working when I have this initial like spark, because then it's almost like playing with another person, that it's just throwing you a ball that you just have to, throw back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all very, that resonates with me, all of it.
How
Especially
do
this, say
how,
again.
how do you manage with the beat block? What's
Oh,
your
it depends. It depends. I think it depends on what type of block, or what within the context. But yes, I think, for sure the limitations, like having some sort of creative limitation. I started to. It's such a simple thing, but it took me so long to realize, and I'd heard it from other producers that I look up to. Um,
Mhm.
but something as simple as like, forcing myself to use maybe one VST only for this entire melody. I have to just keep
Mhm.
using sounds within that, or,
Mhm.
anything kind of similar to that. The learning new things, I didn't like, I love learning new things, and I'm always trying to learn new things, but doing that as a way to combat creative block is a really interesting thing that I never really looked into enough. I'm gonna have to start doing that more. And yeah, I think especially early on, I think a lot of, at least for me, this was the case when artists first start their journey, or they're earlier on.
Mhm.
Sometimes when they stop feeling as inspired, they just stop working on the music entirely.
Mhm.
You're right, because they're not feeling it or whatever, or the project they're working on, they've started to sort of lose that inspiration a little bit. And while I think it's, people say it's good to take breaks and stuff, of course, but I
Of
do think
course.
there's a value, especially early on, because you don't fully know your limitations. Rather than just putting it aside, or totally shutting down the project, to actually just push a little further and keep going and try, like just try. It sounds kind of weird, even though you're not fully inspired, but I find that for me, I can get that inspiration back if I just push through it a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's also one thing for sure. And then, like you said, any sort of, even like how you mentioned it, where you're listening to other music to get inspiration from, it's a way of collaborating with someone else. That's kind of like, I didn't look at it like that, but that's so cool. Like, you're getting that ball thrown at you, and you just have to throw it back. Like, it's a way to collaborate, but not, in person collaborate. I saw that you've been platinum a few times.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. How did that come about? What was, that experience like? Were you expecting that to happen? Just take me through it, and what did it come through?
So first, platinum was, it's actually right now I think it's like a triple of 4 times platinum, but it's in Poland, so it's not in the States. It's not the
Right,
same.
right. Still.
So
I
it's
mean,
like,
yeah.
it's different kind of like numbers,
Yeah.
but yeah, that song that was my first that went platinum was right now it has like 16 million like streams,
Mm.
uh, and like only in Poland is a Polish song, but it was number one album like at the time. It was like
Wow.
actually a debut album from a rapper called Mata. He's
Mm.
like right now he's probably like the biggest rapper in Poland, and he's like he keeps on just pushing boundaries with what can be what can be done with rap music as a medium to communicate different things and communicate different problems, and even though he's like
Mm.
very young, and right now he just went into this like more like party vibes, and it's not
Yeah.
like that fighting for a better world anymore.
Mm.
Uh, the very first album was like very honest, and the song is actually about just sucking at math at school. Being so bad at math.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's the song I was just asked to make, and I was really happy about being asked by that guy because I didn't know him before, But he apparently knew exactly what my style is, and he knew that
Wow.
there are not many producers in Poland that actually just do that thing, just more soulful, like uh, not very like not using that much 808, like just more soulful stuff, and like classic 70s sounding, like inspired. I don't know how to describe it, but
No, no,
there are
for
not
sure.
many, there are not many producers that just can play, can produce, and have like that set of like skills, and that was really, I was really happy that actually it was when we talked before about this progress,
Hmm.
or I was really trying to push myself into, like some projects, like just, yeah, see, I can do this, I can do that, and I was rejected or not, never like getting any response. And here, like, there was actually someone that checked me out and just reached out to me. I think that was the uh, that was a like clear evidence that
Right.
I did some progress.
For sure.
Uh, so that was the first one, and the second one was actually a single from Vito Bambino called Nude that we we just made in the collaboration with some other guys from the band. Uh,
Amazing.
so yeah, but I mean I actually just posted on when I started uh, to connect and to reach out to some other producers. I just knew that okay, it just looks good on Instagram,
For
like
sure.
no matter what it means, and
Yeah.
it's I know that it's all kind of bullshit, like people, yeah, he worked with the baby, he worked with, and basically he was just like sent a starter to someone that made a sample that was like put on the beat, and
Yeah.
we all know that is fake.
Hmm.
Let's be honest,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, but let's just focus on making music, and I think, and just connecting and making those collaborations. And I know that that's easy way to just make my chances a little bit smaller to get rejected.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to
Yeah.
put it. I like that. No, it's so true. I mean, that credit thing is so like it's so true. I think more and more producers as time has progressed, now I see more producers being like, "Oh my god, like forget the credits, like let, it doesn't matter," and all that stuff. And I
Mhm.
totally see what they're saying. I mean, it's 100% at least for me, like it is a really, really effective way, or it has been, to just connect with more people more seamlessly and without as much friction, right? So I see what you're saying. Um, Talk to me a little bit about your work ethic, because as you've said, and I've clearly noticed, one thing that you've always had is this work ethic. Or maybe it's not always, but it seems like it's been there for a long time. Where do you think that comes from? What instilled that type of work ethic in you, and what kept it going for so long? Because I know you talked about burnout in the sense of Instagram content, the type you were making, but is that like, have you always had this sustained work ethic, and where do you think that comes from?
Actually, I have no idea, but I always wanted to deliver things in the best possible like quality I could, and even when I was a part of the project and there was some like visual aspect that I just noticed, okay, it actually could have been done a little bit better, like maybe change the font in this like cover, like to, and I just noticed I was paying attention to some of those details that no one else was paying attention to. So like being kind of a perfectionist, so I just noticed that I have to make just to be 100% satisfied of the outcome of my work. I have to
Hmm.
take care of most of the parts of the whole process. Like
Yeah.
we already talked about, like mixing and mastering, and but also like designing, like artwork. And most of my releases, I made like my own artwork, like
Wow.
even if it was just like making a collage or something, or like using iPad and Procreate to just draw simple stuff. But I just find it like way easier. So and it's so satisfying, just to be able to do all of those different things. And I think I just had always had fun, like so we call it work ethic,
Yeah.
but I actually have fun all the time, just doing those things. And maybe because I switch hats like so often, I'm not really like bored. And every time when I can like switch to something else, I always approach it with a fresh energy, and that really helps to keep the ball rolling. But the other aspect of the work ethics, I think it's right now as I get older and I have family now, and also I know that touring with the band is not very, since I don't live in the same country. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's actually it's not the sustainable way to earn money. I have to do it like some other way. So I think I just basically have no other option than just, I already know, I proven to myself for those years that I actually am able to pull those things off. So right now I just have to do it to uh, unfortunately, like, maybe not quit the band, but quit the part of the band that is like playing live shows, to focus on living here in Denmark and focus on my family. And I know, okay, the only tools I have is just to produce more and compose more and do more things like remotely, and not focus that much on playing live. And that really motivates me to put a structure, in everything that I do to
Mm-hmm.
make it happen.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna start winding down a little bit. I have a few more questions.
Sure.
One is this: how do you even find balance, like with all that you're doing? I know you're saying now you're shifting your focus a little bit again, and you're adjusting to what life brings to you
Mhm.
now, or where you're at rather. But how have you drawn balance, or how do you draw balance, or is there balance? Like, is there, because some people talk about work-life balance and all this stuff. Other people talk about some people say that there is no such thing as a balance. Like you might be in seasons or phases of your career where you are more so focused totally on work and less on other aspects of life. How do you see that?
Uh, s- I think there are also like different scales, and I see the balance like within a day. I cannot. Okay, I can work on music like the for 16 hours straight, and I did it many times. And it just works. Or I have to, like, stand up, or just take a like 10 minutes walk like once in a while, just to keep my body in the right shape, which also I sometimes abandon that idea, uh, but because I'm in this like constant like flow state, and just focus
Yeah.
on making things. So that, but as soon as my wife comes back from like work, I'm more aware of the life part of the equation, and that's actually not that difficult, unless I have like a deadline, that I have to meet.
Right.
That's a different story. But also there's a bigger scale of me being at home, and there are some weeks or some months that I'm at home, and then I can work within this small work-life balance,
Yeah.
but there are some months that I'm on tour, and that has, mm, I have to approach it like differently. Then I just I'm more into the survival mode when I'm on tour. Just
Sure.
just trying to work whenever I have time, or whenever I have like the possibility to do some work, because if for example there is a sound check and I have only like 15 minutes that I cannot do anything else than just sit on my phone or just wait, or I cannot uh, plan my stuff uh, in a in a like efficient, if in a
Right.
efficient way. I'm more in the into the survival mode on tour,
Yeah.
but that's also a balance, and it's also like my takes care takes care of my like social needs, because when I'm on tour there are a lot of people around, and I have like
Right.
parties and
Yeah.
things like that. But when I'm at home, I just don't need it anymore, because I'm already like, my social part of me is already like full of
Oh, I
people.
bet. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so the last couple things I'll touch on is one, who do you, or do you have anyone that you go to when you're feeling lost, right? It could be with life or music, or where you're kind of like trying to figure something out. Like, do you have a system or a process that, maybe for music you go to someone, maybe for life things you go to someone else, or do you just kind of work through it yourself? How does that go for you?
I actually mostly work things out myself. Like, of course, like talking to my wife or talking to my like closest friends. It's
Mm-hmm.
you know that every time when you have a problem and you just say it out loud to other person, sometimes like things switch in your mind,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and then you just realize, okay, that's actually the solution, or I can look at that problem like from that perspective, and that really helps to understand it and overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so I think that's just happens naturally that way. Also, like, I was just because I like doing things myself, I always try to find solution, like usually just in the internet, because you can always find things in the internet. And
Absolutely.
that's how I solved like most of my problems before. And then I try to help people that just maybe don't use internet that much, or they just know that I'm good at some things, and every time when I, for example, yesterday I had a call with with the guy that actually showed me Jay Dilla and DJ Premier, and right now he wants to like go back into making beats. So I was talking with him like for 4 hours on Zoom and just explaining him like things, and just we also talk about life, and that those conversations always helped me with finding the solutions to some problems that maybe didn't even arrive. If you know what I mean, then
Yeah.
I'm much
Yeah.
more aware what kind of problems other people have, and as soon
Mm-hmm.
as they come to me, I basically know what to do. Or sometimes I just need to let things go and just take a break and
Yeah.
watch The Office with my wife.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Last question, I promise. It's kind of a broad one,
uh,
but what are your favorite VSTs?
okay. Mm, I have to visualize my DAW. Okay,
Sure.
but then let's narrow it down to like music instruments or like processing.
I was very, yeah, we can, let's do both. Let's do one for, one section and one for the other, because I'm curious about both.
Mm, for instruments, I guess it's like analog lab Arturia stuff. For
Mm-hmm.
all the keyboards, but it's also like Keyscape is also fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, so maybe those two, like Keyscape and Arturia stuff. Mm, yeah, of course, like Contact. Like,
Yeah.
okay. I have to be more. I have to be more precise. I have to be more precise. Mm, lately, I think Arturia, the acoustic piano, I really like the way it sounds, and I really like the way you can make it out of tune and make it sound old. I think
Mm.
that's, I'm always like with my music, I always go for the natural sound or the retro sound, and that's until I have a right studio and a real upright piano, I can only just emulate stuff, and I think that really gives me the best. results
Wow. Yeah.
using that. And yours? What's yours?
That's a great
Your
question
favorite?
too. I love Analog Lab. I really love Analog Lab. Ana 2 is a VST I've been using more of. It has a pretty harsh sound with the electronic, harsh sound with it, but I really
Which
do
one?
love that. It's called Ana 2, ANA 2. It's
Okay.
by, yeah, I got it as a part of Slate Digital. I don't know if it's their VST, but I know it's a part of their bundle. Like I pay monthly for their mixing plugins, and that it was just included with that. And when I bought it, downloaded it, was like I was impressed with it, and it was kind of like we said, like it was a new refreshing VST. It really took me out of this creative block I was in, so it's been really
Oh,
nice. Yeah, yeah, I
Anna
love
too.
Anna too. Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. Um, Analog Lab's great. Keyscape is always great. Yeah, but you're right. Um, Contact, I do love some of the analog strings. I haven't used them in a while, but I like analog strings, analog brass. That's
Hmm.
by, can't remember who that's by. What's the company's name? Those guys are great at what they do though. They have incredible stuff. They're the same people that made Arcade. I don't know why I can't think of the name. Um,
Output.
Output, yes, yes, yeah, they're great. Yeah. Um, yeah, man, that's those are the main ones that stand out for me. I feel like I'm forgetting a few now, but yeah, those are the ones right now. Yeah. And how about yourself for processing? That's what I'm really curious about.
Mm, I think Soothe. That's
Yeah.
that's such a time saver. It's
Hmm.
especially when like being a lo-fi. I just
Yeah.
I have this mic and I just put it on my desk and take my like nylon guitar, and I don't really care about like all the reflections, and then I just use Soothe to just make it usable.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that it really saves my time. Recently, Reels.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. I love reels. I
yeah, I
love
mean that,
reels.
that, that detune and that like wow, it's much. I mean, RC20 is nice, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit like too boring. Like I use
Yeah.
RC20 right now more for like this like magnetic thing,
Sure.
like to introduce this like tremolo kind of thing. But for the wobble, Reels awesome, and they also audio thing. That's the plugin company.
Right, yeah.
They also have the one called Wires, a wire.
Okay.
It's
I've
like
never even heard of
Reels.
it.
It's like Reels, but like more fucked up.
Oh, I got it.
Like
I'm gonna, yeah, I'll
I mean,
keep that in mind.
it's so hard to if you have too many instruments using that, it's just getting too nasty. Like so mid-rangey and like.
Yeah.
And then you put Sooth on that, and that's a little bit better.
That's awesome.
So those two, uh, I love like tape saturation, and recently grabbed the tube, or like it's from Good Hertz, the ones that
Oh.
made the Wolf compressor,
Oh
and
yes, yeah.
they have the saturator that is a combination of tape and tube.
Oh
That's why.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool. I've heard of it. I've never used it.
it's I know it has just something that just, for example, the tape thing just rounds everything in the bottom end and just extends the low end like in a very nice way.
Hmm.
So before I used to use J37,
Yeah.
but it gives a character, but it's you cannot reshape the sound like in a very aggressive way. And with the tube plugin, you can actually shape the sound very precisely.
Hmm. Very
So
cool.
yeah, so I think those more
Those
than
are
one.
awesome. No, that's perfect. I love that. I love that answer. I'm definitely gonna check out Wires and the Good Hurts one. I didn't. Yeah, I've only used their Wolf compressor and I've used what's it called? Lossy. I don't know if
Lossy
you've. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lossy's nice. I
is
like Lossy.
for the it's like a beat crusher kind of thing,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah, sample reducer. Then I for that kind of stuff I use Decimart,
Oh yes. I've never
and
okay. Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna I actually want to hear what you have to say about this because I tried Decimort a couple times and I
Mhm,
can't seem to. I think I just don't know how to use the plugin well, but it
mhm.
hasn't like it just doesn't work as well for me. I don't know why.
I haven't tried Lossy. Maybe it's easier,
Yeah.
But for example, like just to give it a little bit of this like crunch or
Mm-hmm.
like filtering with lowering the yeah, it is a sample rate. No,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it is a sample rate. It's not the bit rate. You can also like when you lower the bit rate, it gets like
Mm-hmm.
crunchy, and then when you combine it uh, with reducing sample rate and then filtering it, it actually
Yeah.
filters it in a different way than a normal filter.
I
It's
see. Okay, I'll mess with that then.
yeah, that's and also there's just a basic preset of like MPC 60 or
Mm.
like SP 1200, and it just gives it a nice, crunch. Sometimes I'm not using it all the time. Maybe sometimes just throw it on the master and with like just a tiny little bit.
Mm. Um, I do want to. Have you heard of Sketch Cassette?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Sketch Kiss is
yeah. I
awesome.
was wondering. I
It's
know you like those types of plugins, so that's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's
yeah.
really really nice one because it's also like very. For example, there's this Waste Factory cassette
Oh yeah, I haven't
one.
used that one yet.
It's really nice, but it's very aggressive. It
Hmm.
instantly makes it like sound like mid-rangey, and sometimes you just want to keep the same like frequency spectrum, but just make it like a little bit more crunchy and wobbly. And
Mm-hmm.
and Sketch Cassette is perfect for that because you
Yeah.
can you can get like clean mix, but still just make it a little bit like crunchy. It's so easy to use. I use it actually quite often. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I bought the reels,
Yeah. Yeah. Reels is
like
awesome.
you probably have the same thing that you have those like new toys, and then you just
Exactly.
throw
Yeah.
them all in the
Yeah.
corner.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then okay, I know I said last one, but
It's
in
it's,
terms
it's
of
cool.
okay,
It's
in
nice.
terms, yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm glad you're enjoying. In terms of mastering, like what kind of plugins and what kind of things are you looking for when you're in the mastering process of a song? Like I said, I'm still very new to it. I'm still
Mhm.
learning, little things. My friend just put me onto the Oxford inflator, which I had no idea about what that even was. And then now it's a whole new world for me. But what
It's
kind
very
of,
nice.
yeah, yeah. So what kind of plugins are you using and what kind of things do you look for when you're in the mastering process?
Uh, I usually just first of all look for like translation. If there's anything, is when I go into. I know that before I said that there's like no thing like between mixing and mastering, but it's mostly like about the mindset. Then I switch the mindset to okay, now it's like is the final process. I have to make sure it sounds good on like different sound systems. And I recently grabbed this Slate Digital VSX. Those like,
Oh
do you know
yeah. I've
headphones? Like
never.
it's simulating like different rooms.
Wow.
And I decided to grab it before going on tour, so I could just mix and just like yeah just do more work, like being outside of my studio. And just I picked
Right.
them up like months ago to get used to them because it's freaky, it's
Yeah.
because it really sounds like you're in the room with and
Whoa.
has this weird mm, kind of like reverb. It's hard to describe, and you have
Sure.
different sets of speakers. And at the beginning, once you launch the app, you just switch from different studios, and it's actually not the right way to do it. As they advise, is just to stick to one room and one set of speakers and listen to a lot of music, just listening to that and just getting used to, just
Ah,
like you would get used to the, like your
right.
speakers or the room or headphones. And that's what I did. And right now I actually have three different presets. One is like this mix cube, like Avantone, like kind of. I don't have one myself, but it's just. And then I know that okay, it's usually between like 600 and 800 hertz when it gets like this whistly kind of annoying sound, that just really is really fatiguing your ears.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I then use that setting to just tame this a little bit. Or with the mastering mindset, sometimes I just go back to mix, and instead of just making adjustments to the like mastering channel, I just go back to
Right.
and that's the advantage of mastering in the mixing and
Yeah.
producing, like session. Uh, so I basically just go through different rooms and sets of speakers and see if there's anything annoying, because I know that if I start to just crank it up with limiting and like just boosting the volume, it's gonna get like even more annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, so usually it's just for safety I use Soothe. That's usually the first one.
Right.
Then I use I have Ozone. I know that there's a new one, but I only use the widening like thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I widen like things like above 300 hertz just to get a little bit like more separation.
Right.
Of course, like before I check the whole mix in mono just to see if there's like. And the funny thing about the Slate, like the whole like virtual rooms
Mm-hmm.
setup, I started noticing that everything is like much more blurred. Like I don't have that much separation as I would get in with headphones.
Hmm.
I started to be much more conscious about arrangement of the mix when I
Ah.
because when I produce on headphones, I had so much space. I had like I could put so many different elements, and it was not bothering my ears, and I could focus on
Hmm.
everything. And once I put everything on speakers, it was like everything was like.
Yeah.
Actually, it helps me with cleaning the arrangement and sometimes just removing some parts as a part of mixing and mastering. Um, so that was that's one of the steps. Just cleaning the arrangement, cleaning the mix, those like harsh frequencies. And when it comes to enhancement, analog obsession.
No.
There is this guy. He has a Patronite thing, and you can just donate like $5 a month, and then he makes really good emulations of different hardware units in the
Wow.
plugin version. It's really cool, and they sound very good. Sometimes they're not very like stable, like
Hmm.
with like the new M1s and uh, but there's this one BX EQ, like Coral Baxter.
Hmm.
I know that there's also another plugin company that has this one for free. It's like a red one. I don't know if you know that EQ.
I don't know if I do.
Yeah, but it's perfect for boosting low end because it just makes it like it's not boomy. It just in a nice way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I recently learned how to use Pultec EQs
Oh
as well
yeah.
with this attenuation thing. Before I didn't really know what it's doing, but right now it really makes sense. Sometimes I use that for boosting low end and just cleaning, like
Yeah.
Pultec
Yeah.
thing. Uh, so that's for the enhancement, and then I sometimes use the Oxford inflator
Nice.
just to just crank it like 15% because it never does any harm. It just
Yeah.
makes things like thicker, you know, and nicer. Recently I put this tube thing on the master as well, just to also like give more saturation and just
Right.
make things like a little bit like glued together a little bit more. And then at the end, you know, Gulfos.
Yes.
That's also like another like cheat code plugin. You know, it's almost like Soothe, but it's I know that the new Isotope Ozone also has this one like kind of like real time shaper. You know,
Yeah.
it's easy to overdo it, but just tiny little movements just make everything like more smooth. And you can also like you can use it as a tilt EQ, but in a more natural way. That's not like okay, let's.
Yeah.
But it's just it adapts, you know, like to arrangement as well, you know. So yeah, and then put like FabFilter L2 at the end, and
Right.
just crank the oversampling like to maximum, just like as soon as I just make the final render, just to make it sound a little bit cleaner. And that's
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate that. The Gullfoss thing, I know I've used it maybe one time, and I don't even think it was with my own stuff. It was somewhere else, but I recall it a little, so I totally forgot about it until you mentioned it. So I appreciate that. I'll definitely check it out.
And it also really works well on separate tracks. If like like it almost sounds like perfectly recorded. No, it's like a sibling of Soothe. You know,
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing. You know,
Cool.
it's easy to overdo it. Then the sound might become a little bit boring. You know, but it's for some purposes, you know, boring is better than annoying.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I had. Is there anything you wanted to touch on before we wrap this up? Or and obviously, when you want to plug yourself, I'm gonna have all your links below as well. But you can say whatever you need to.
I just want to say thank you for reaching out. I think it's just so nice to be able to speak up and share some of my experiences, and because I'm not that vocal about like my story on Instagram, or like I always only share the process and if in like work in progress kind of video, you know, like just on the Insta story things, just kind of communicate that way. And a lot of people might not know what I've been doing for the past 10 years, you know. So so thanks for the opportunity to
Anytime. No, absolutely. And thank you for coming on here, because I totally agree. I think there's so many people in the music space, producers, engineers, anybody in that space that there's not a lot of podcasts or platforms that there's not a lot of them. There's a few, but there's not a lot. And so I didn't know fully, like when I first started, but I knew that this was going to be people would be interested. And so I think it is awesome that that people are going to get to hear sort of the behind the scenes of your actual life and progression throughout your creative journey. So yeah, man, I appreciate it heavily. I learned a ton during this, and I do hope to have you on again in due time.
Sure. I would love to. I would love
Awesome.
to whenever like something groundbreaking happens.
Absolutely.
And just hit me up whenever you have like any questions, or like if just like you said, you just mastered a track, like I could just listening and probably say it sounds fire.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.